Hi, I'm Carol Ricard, and welcome to this episode of I Am Not Cancer. I am super excited for you to be joining us tonight. Now, you're in the right place if you are someone whose life has been touched by cancer. And really, the mission of this show is sort of threefold. It is to inspire hope. It is to provide information so people can make, good decisions about their treatment. And three, it's really to give people and empower people with the tools to sort of deal with the stress that comes along with cancer. And so on tonight's show, we are actually having our first guest, and that is Carrie Law-Lewis. So I want everybody to welcome Carrie to the show. Woohoo!
Thank you.
I don't have any sound effects, so I'll be it. No music or anything like that. And in full disclosure, just to everybody watching us, this is actually the second time Carrie and I have done this. We taped this show. Oh my God, like 3 weeks ago, maybe or so.
Yeah.
And technical glitch. And so here we are, and I'm just super grateful for the do-over. So thank you so much for being so gracious and coming back here, Carrie. It's
pleasure.
Good to have you. And so here's what I want to do. I failed to do this last time. So what I want to ask you to do, Carrie, is share a little bit about you, the Carrie before cancer intruded into your life.
Okay. Well, before cancer, I was living life. I was traveling and working and hanging out with my friends. I was throwing axes twice a week in a league. I was going to school. I was busy.
So you were going to school too?
Yeah. I was going to school at night.
Well, would you mind if I asked what you were studying?
I was studying French.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah. And you also, I don't want to give away your personal business, but there was a thing that you had to do tonight.
Yes. Well, tonight, I went to watch my little 3-year-old grandson get his soccer medal. So that was also what I was doing before I was diagnosed. I spend a lot of time with my grandkids, a lot of time with them. So when I was diagnosed, they actually were my first thought. It wasn't, oh my God, I'm going to die. It was, oh my God, I can't leave them.
Yeah. And so you are tuning in tonight from Canada.
Kitchener, Ontario.
Have you always lived there?
I've always lived in Ontario, yes. I'm originally from Guelph, which is about 20 minutes down the highway from here.
So we're having sort of an intercontinental, sort of meeting, because I'm here in New Jersey.
Right.
And so I wanted to ask you now, what was going on in your life that even led to your diagnosis? Because what I've found in talking to different people is, boy, there were different paths that people kind of found themselves on. And I'm just curious, what path, was that for you?
Well, I had just came back from Vegas, and about 3 days later, I went to the ER because I had some pain. It's not really pain. I had a twinge in my side, but it was consistent. It wasn't going away. And I thought, maybe I had gallstones or something. So I went to the ER, but I really didn't have a lot of signs. Looking back now, I can see some things, but at the time, cancer wasn't even on my radar. Having anything wrong with me wasn't on my radar.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I've spoken with several different people who it was a trip to the emergency room for something that they kind of thought was something else or just not on the radar, and quite honestly, we're blindsided by that.
Yeah, well, she blindsided me when when you get there and you give your blood work and you give them a urine sample and whatever else they want you to do. And she came back into my little curtained area and she said, is there any chance you could be pregnant? And I said, no. And she said, well, your urine test came back positive that you're pregnant. And I thought, holy cow, there's no way that I'm pregnant. So she asked me if she could do it again. So I gave her another sample. She ran it again and she's like, yep, still pregnant. But I didn't know at that time either that if you have certain abdominal cancers that you throw this HHR hormone, I think it's called, which leads to a false positive pregnancy. She said she's seen it in men. So, but I was still pretty
Wow.
surprised. I mean, I had a hysterectomy in 2014. There was no way
Yeah.
that I was pregnant.
Listen, I was going to say, if you were pregnant, then you know what?
Yeah.
There are aliens coming from Mars tomorrow.
Well, and you know what? That's exactly how it felt. The whole thing was so surreal just from that moment. And then when she told me, she sent me for an ultrasound. And when she got those results, she called me into her little area and she said, you have several masses on your liver and I think it's cancer. And I thought, holy, that's not, I never dreamed of being diagnosed with cancer. And I certainly didn't think that's the way that it would go down.
Yeah.
But she said that, she was pretty sure that it was cancer in my liver and that I needed to get a CT scan immediately. So 2 days later, they got me in and they said, you've got something going on in your esophagus too. And there was a spot in my kidney and then my lymph nodes. And it just, every doctor I saw had, more bad things to add to the story.
Wow. Now I knew, that you had been diagnosed stage 4, but hearing you just describe about, really kind of like what you were blindsided with is really pretty incredible. Because it wasn't just, okay, here, Carrie, you have this one,
Right.
just kind of have this one thing. It's okay, here, Carrie, it's just, sort of your whole body is just sort of like been invaded by this cancer.
Well, I saw 8 different doctors and every single one of them had another piece to add to this pie. And, I was having a hard enough time dealing with the fact that I might have liver cancer. And then they said, well, you have something going on in your esophagus. We need to do a scope and some biopsies. And the one doctor said, if that comes back positive, then there's nothing we can do for you. Because I guess once it's in 2 different places, then you are stage 4 and then they look for the primary. And I don't know which would have been better to have, my primary as my liver or my primary as my esophagus, but it didn't matter to me. It's just, you hear all these words and you think, well, this is a weird movie, but it's your life.
Yeah. And I know this from our other conversation, but you really sort of educated yourself as well, right? I mean, you kind of didn't rely on your doctors. And I think that's a really important point for people to understand. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Well, as soon as I found out that, I thought I had liver cancer, I started doing a bunch of research and it was all bad news. And then when I was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, you really have to dig into that one because it's not a very well researched cancer. It's not a common cancer. So not as much money goes into the research or the information. But, you get onto Google and then it's just a wormhole and you find so much information. Like the stats on it are terrible. But you just have to think. I mean, these now I can say easily, they're just numbers and somebody makes up those stats and, you've got just as good of a shot as anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I was going to ask you, the numbers that you looked at, were they positive or more negative? And
they were terrible. So for esophageal cancer, just as a whole, they say it's 19.2% chance of survival for 5 years. More than 50% of people die within the first 12 months. And if you're stage 4, then your numbers, I think it's 4.2% chance of surviving.
Wow. So, and what really I want people to understand is that you are sitting here talking to us right this very moment as a woman who has no signs of cancer in her body.
Not a cell.
Yeah.
Nope. It's amazing. It's been such an amazing road to be on. I never dreamed I would see the medical system from this deep within it. And it's shocking to me how many flaws there are in the system and how often people are treated as numbers and not as real people.
Yeah.
From my own experience, when they diagnose you as stage 4, the first sentence out of their mouth is, "And there's nothing we can do for you."
Yeah.
Well,
And
you haven't even looked at me yet. You have a scan in front of you, but there's more to me than that scan.
yeah. Yeah. And that's why, I thought you would, I mean, you really are this perfect guest, to come on for our first guest on the show, because this is just really a brand new show. Everybody needs to know. I'm kind of fumbling my way through it.
You're doing
But
great.
that you really are, to me, like a living example of I am not cancer. Oh,
Yeah.
and I think, and we had this conversation last time that really one of your missions is to get doctors so that they don't tell people,
Yep.
right, what they're how long they have to survive, because
Right.
they really don't know.
Well, I just felt from my own personal experience that the doctors kind of just smash you with this information. And then you have to go and pick up the pieces through strangers that you meet in the cancer world who give you hope and give you some inspiration to
Yeah,
say, well, wait a minute, maybe I can do this.
yeah. Yeah. And you know what's so important about what you're saying, Carrie, is that, I worked in healthcare for 30 years. And when I was diagnosed, quite honestly, I didn't know crap about cancer.
Yeah,
And
me
I
neither.
realized that I needed to learn about it. And thank God I'd had a couple people who had shared with me about, they'd given me Radical Remission,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
a great book to read. My own sister gave me Jane McClellan's, book, How to Starve
Right.
Cancer. And so I was fortunate early on that I read stories of people who were given no hope that are
Hmm.
alive, 20 years later.
Hmm.
And
Right.
and you're right. And it's just that message isn't one that gets across to people very
No.
often.
But
Um,
those are the things that you have to search out.
yeah,
Is where's the hope? Where's the light? Where do I go from here? Because you really only have two choices. You can accept what they're telling you. And I mean, they told me to go home, spend some time with my family and get my affairs in order. I could have done that. But I was so angry, the audacity to tell me that I have stage 4 cancer and that I'm not going to make it.
yeah,
I thought, you people don't know me. And I mean, I was blessed by God that I am here today. And I know that this could have went the other way just as easily.
yeah.
So I just feel like there is always hope and you just have to look for it.
Yeah. And what's so important what you're saying is, because you said finding it in other people. And so if you
Hmm.
don't have that hope, sometimes we got to find it. And really that was how I met you, was kind of through a support group. And you had
That's
put a
right.
post up saying you'd gone from, stage 4 esophageal cancer, right?
Hmm.
To you had your PET scan that showed no signs of cancer. And then they
Yeah.
made you come back to repeat some tests because they were just like blown
Yeah.
away, like, wait a minute, that's not supposed to be, right?
Right. That's right. They were so sure they were going to find it, and they did all these tests. And finally, they said, "Well, we're going to biopsy your scar tissue because if there has to be cancer somewhere, so it must be there because we can't see through the PET scan. We can't see through the scar tissue." And then they did that biopsy, and that came back empty too. So, I mean,
Wow.
yeah, I don't
My,
understand it.
my head is just like, I got to hold it so it just doesn't
Yeah.
sort of like, hello, you have this PET scan, which is quite honestly a gold standard, right?
Right.
I mean,
Hmm.
for detecting cancer, not
Yeah.
not the healthiest thing for us to do, but
Right. Right.
you know, gold standard. And, you know, and one of the other things though that you would use the word, I had said something about, I'd in my book, I talked about the 4 stages of acceptance, right?
Hmm.
Denial, resist, accept and embrace. And you, the last time we talked, it said, oh, well, I was in denial, because I was like, no, I'm denying this. And I said, no, 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 that wasn't denial at all. That was embracing doing what you could do, and embracing life rather than, sort of embracing their limitation that they were trying to put on you. And I think that is, that in itself is just such an inspiration and just so powerful.
I remember one of the nurses that was hooking up my chemo said to me, "You're the happiest cancer patient that we've ever had here." And I thought, well, what option do you have? What's the alternative?
Yeah.
It was an experience. I was going to have to go through it whether I liked it or not. So you might as well just hang on and find the good in it.
Yeah.
And for me, the good in all of this was the people that I met.
Yeah.
They are an amazing, amazing group of people in this cancer world.
Yeah, it really is a pretty amazing kind of family, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'd asked some questions the last time. I'd come across these questions from an article that Camilla Allen wrote, and I still want to get a few of these in. Looking at the time, we have about 10, 11 minutes left of our show time here.
Okay.
So the first question I want to ask is, how have you shifted your perception of this illness since first learning about it?
Well, in the beginning, it's terrifying and it haunts you. And my perception of it now is, one doctor said to me, this is going to be a lifetime illness that you're going to have to deal with, like high blood pressure or diabetes. And that really helped me shift my perception of it, because then it wasn't something to be terrified of. It was just something that I had to deal with.
Yeah. You know what's so amazing is that maybe that's what brought us together, because we sort of have this same belief. I too believe that cancer is more like a chronic illness.
Yep.
In fact, when I was doing my learning, what I came to learn was that everybody on the planet has had cancer several times in their lifetime. Their
Right.
immune system, though, has been able to stop those rogue cells, right? And so the truth of the matter is that one of mine just snuck away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me too, I view cancer as sort of a chronic illness that if I can manage it,
Yep.
and I think that's why, people, when they go cancer free and then they end up, with another reoccurrence, it's so devastating. But what we have to realize is it's still there. We just got to we just have to create the garden that it just doesn't want to plant itself in, is the way I like to think of it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. From that shift from the terrifying to, I think it is from being, the victim to being the victor.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's
I remember when I had to shave my head and somebody said to me, well, it's just hair, it'll grow back. And I thought, the hell it is. It is like literally just hair. However, emotionally, it's just one more thing that cancer takes away from you, is one more way it changes you.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Did you shave your hair, though, so that the cancer didn't take it away from you, but it was your choice?
It was my choice to shave it, but it was falling out pretty steadily. But I did do it before it all fell out on its own.
Yeah. So here's the other question I want to ask you is, what have you learned and what has this experience given you so far?
Well, I have learned empathy and compassion for other people that I never had before. It has been a gift to me to get cancer, because it changed who I am and it made me a better person. I've just learned, I don't know, I guess, to appreciate my own life more. And I've learned myself, because I had to spend a lot of time in my own head when you're first diagnosed.
Yeah. And you bring up another really important point, though, and that is that sometimes we can almost get too lost in our head.
Yep.
And it's having this balance of people around you that are more supportive, that aren't fueling that as I like to say, is no negative Nancy's.
That's right. I said that myself. I said, you know what, no negativity is going to be in this house while I'm going through this, because it's hard enough to stay positive when you're facing this, but I just didn't want any black clouds.
Yeah. And I think it's okay, and I want people to get the message that it's really okay for people to, sort of set limits.
Mm,
I was just talking to a stage 4 cancer survivor, and she, had said is that she didn't have her family come with her to her doctor's appointments because they were too emotionally attached. She
right,
actually had one of her good friends who she knew would stay calm and,
right.
you know, kind of not so emotional.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
hard to watch other people crying.
Yeah.
I felt so guilty in the beginning. I thought, oh my God, look what I've done to my parents. They're never going to sleep again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the reality is, I mean, we've all gotten stronger from this and we've all become a lot closer as a
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. I think that's, I mean, and I think there's a lot of gifts,
Hmm.
that people can get from cancer. And I know that
Yep.
there are people watching that are going to say, what the hell are they talking
Right.
about?
Where's my gift?
Pardon my
Yeah.
language. How is this some friggin' gift,
Yeah. Yeah.
And and that's okay. I understand that that might
Yeah.
be just where you are right now. But yeah, it's kind of like, well, listen, it's here, so what am I going to do about it?
That's
Right?
right. Like any bad situation, you have to find the positive in it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and I would be remiss because I'm going to throw, I can't show it right here right now this moment, but I am throwing in this picture right this minute, all right, when I'm editing this, of Wonder Woman,
Oh,
because
jeez.
this is you in your Wonder Woman costume at one of your chemotherapy appointments. And
Yeah.
can you just share with us how this came to be?
I had posted a picture on Facebook during a chemo treatment. I think I was wearing a shirt that said, radiation gave me superpowers. And a friend that I went to high school with had commented on it and just said, you need to wear a Wonder Woman costume. And then another friend I went to school with said, well, I have one. So I just said, okay, well, careful what you wish for. I'm going to come pick it up. And then the next treatment that I had, which I think was the next day actually, I did wear it. I
Yeah.
did wear it. And I wasn't doing well that day. I was sick as a dog, but showed up wearing this Wonder Woman suit. And just the other patients and the nurses in there, just the smiles on their faces. I thought, okay, you know what? This is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's, sometimes too is that if we could just think about how we can sometimes help other people. Might
Yeah.
be hard to help yourself, but in the meantime, you kind of see that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so people are seeing, they saw this picture of this Wonder Woman, which is just so incredible. I'm just not able to do that right this minute here on Facebook. Probably technologically possible, but my technological level is not possible.
Right. Right. Well, I think most people on Facebook have already seen it. It's made the
Yeah.
rounds.
Well, you know what? But just in case, there's going to be others. And
Yeah.
so another one of these wonderful questions was, what is one or more thing you could pass on to others who might be experiencing, a cancer diagnosis right now?
The first thing I would say is just stay strong. Don't fall apart yet. Hang in there till you get a plan. Do the testing, have the appointments, but stay good in the head. And then you'll get your final diagnosis, but that comes with a plan. And as long as there's a plan, there's always hope. There's
Yeah.
always something you can do.
Yeah. And what would you say? Because I know that the support system in support groups have been an important part for you.
Hmm.
Um, you know, kind of for
Definitely
people connecting
join
to
them. Yep.
those.
Yep, join them. I also belong to a cancer support group, like in person here in Kitchener. Now, for the last year and a half, because of COVID, we aren't able to meet face to face, but we do it virtually. But it's just, and I didn't know any of these women when I was first diagnosed, but you develop this bond and this closeness, and it's a good place to be able to vent that you don't want to burden your family with, how you feel or whatever. It's important to have these support groups with people who know exactly what you're going through. And I always say to people, I am always here. If you want to call, if you want to chat, if you want to text, I don't care what time it is, because there were people there for me when I went through it. And I couldn't believe that there were people in this world I could just phone at 3 o'clock in the morning that I've never ever met.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty incredible. But I think it's sort of this language that people kind of understand, and
Yeah.
and the emotional part of the language is, I think, what people understand as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, those are great, 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 great words.
Yeah. It's
And
a terrible club to belong to, but the
yeah,
members are outstanding.
yeah, yeah. And I think what's great about, is being around other people who are survivors,
Yep.
right? And knowing that you kind of, like, you yourself are now this, this person that kind of can be this sort of lighthouse for other people, that says, well, listen, it doesn't matter what they tell you, it
That's
matters in your
right.
mind what you sort of decide.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. When I first joined these support groups, there was a lady named Gail, and she was a stage 4 survivor. And at that time, I think she was maybe 18 or 19 years surviving. And I latched onto this poor woman, and I still do today. But she was there for me. And she was a beacon of hope to me. I have a friend here in Ontario named Tina, who also is a survivor. She didn't have esophageal cancer, but she had cancer, and she was a survivor. And I met her through a good friend of mine, and it was just so nice that I could just say, "Did you ever have this?" or "What's it like when this happens?"
Yeah, it's kind of like, having people who've gone down that path, and
Yeah,
can kind of point out things to you that,
yeah,
that they've learned, and then this
yeah.
way you don't have to kind of learn them so well.
Well, I
So,
felt like they were holding a door open for me, and all I
yeah,
had to do was keep moving. I mean, I
yep.
felt like the door kept moving further and further away, but all I had to do was keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know what? I think that is such another important message in your message, is that, is that keep taking those little itty bitty steps forward.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how slow you do, it doesn't
Nope.
matter how much, but, try
Yeah.
to keep some of the things in your life that moving forward, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's, again, it's like time has flown by. I'm looking at my watch here and thinking, oh my goodness, we're already at our 28-minute mark. And,
Okay.
but I definitely want to have you come back on, 6 months from now, just to
Yeah.
check in with you, see how things are going. And, you know, I love your energy, and I just thank you so much for kind of being here with us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I think it is very important what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for helping me get the word out. So thanks so much for joining us, everybody. This is going to be broadcast on PrincetonTV.org, and I will get Carrie those dates as soon as they, are determined. And so you could share, or have people come back to watch this Facebook replay.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much, and we'll
Thanks,
talk to
Carol.
everybody later.
Okay. Bye.